some more great points that you had. Your top 5 takeaways from this week 3 that we just got out of. Start you with number 5. You said the AFC West, the best division in football. Why'd you say it? Who's catching your eye?
Man, the Raiders, first and foremost, they're undefeated. Now, did you call that, Jack? Did you call that the Raiders are going to be undefeated? I mean, John Gruden has done a wonderful job. You talk about defensively, that's where I'm really excited. Yannick Ngakoue, Max Crosby, Casey Hayward, those guys that's flat out balling. And I never thought that Raiders defense would transform into what it's transformed into. And I don't know the stats and all the statistics and all that. All I know is when I see them play, they got 11 guys flying around, hitting, cheering one another, just getting around the ball, creating turnovers, and making plays. I love to see it. Number 2, I'm looking at the Denver Broncos. Teddy B, his teammates absolutely love him. Every time you hear one of his teammates talk about him, they always talk about his leadership and how calm he is and just the calmness that he brings to the offense. And then, of course, the Chargers. Brandon Staley has this team focused. And before Anthony Lynn and all those other coaches before, they couldn't finish. You saw them always get penalties and fumbles and just bad football. Brandon Staley has this team believing. They've always been a naturally talented team, but now this head coach, and I think he's going to do a wonderful job. He has these guys finishing and believing in themselves.
I think the Chargers might. We hit on the Raiders. We've hit on Vegas heavily on this show, and it's because they have been real. And Derek Carr's playing the best football that we've seen him ever play. And so I think we're giving them, fair love there. Over 400 passing yards he's throwing for in every single game is Carr. He leads the league in passing yards by a substantial margin. He's ahead of Tom Brady, who's right there in the second slot by a substantial margin. So I think that's all been real. The aggressiveness with which the Chargers played the Chiefs caught my attention. The way that every time it was a 4th down and they're in field goal range and they could go tie the game with the field goal, but they're not worried about that. They're going for it. They want 7. They just were constantly putting this Chiefs defense on their heels, and I thought what they did defensively, defending Patrick Mahomes, look at some of these throws by Herbert, put it up high, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Finally watch these guys have a quarterback. Just put it up high. How many times when we're watching this game, Rod, did you see these monsters on the outside for the Chargers just ripping balls out of the air like rebounds? They're just going up and stealing it away, and that's how they ended up taking this game from the Chiefs.
Brother, and I'm going to tell you this, as much as I'm excited about Williams and Allen and all the weapons they have, their left tackle, and it just slipped my name, Rashawn Slater. This kid is going to be special, okay? I watched him block Chris Jones. I watched him the first 2 weeks, and he's going to be an outstanding left tackle. He's a rookie. So now you're going to have one of the best left tackles in all of football playing on a rookie deal for the next 4 to 5 years. I'm just really pumped up about the Chargers and what they're doing on the offensive line and what Justin Herbert, like when he first started, remember last year when he found out like 10 minutes before, and I'm like, and I saw him play, and he went out there and he just balled out. And I said, the Chargers should never go back to the backup quarterback. Like, this guy is special, and I think that's what we're seeing.
He is special, and I want to ask you this, too, because we're seeing a new defensive scheme going up against Kansas City offensively, and it's working. And what they're doing and what the Chargers did, they're sitting back in these 2 safeties, 2 deep safeties, and they're going, run the ball, great, do what you want to do, take 10, 15 completions to go down the field, it's beautiful, go do it all day if you want to. But we're not getting beat by one 80-yard bomb to Tyreek or to Kelsey over the top that's wrecking the whole game. They're going to make you nickel and dime and earn it, and it seems to be working. They're forcing some bad mistakes out of Mahomes and others. Clyde Edwards-Helaire starting to have a fumbling problem. Is there a new playbook defensively that's starting to work against KC?
Well, it's not a new playbook because if you remember correctly, when we were in Baltimore, I told you the same exact thing. Keep 2 safeties back. Yep. Make sure you box in 1. Man-to-man on Tyreek Hill. Get one guy that you know will challenge him, will be up in his hip every single play and keep a safety deep. That's what you do, and you eliminate those big plays. Then Andy Reid has to come up with more creative ways, jet sweeps and things like that to get him the ball. But he's not catching those 60, 70-yard bombs. And when you eliminate that, then what do? They go to Travis Kelce. They wear him out in the middle of the field. But ultimately, it comes down to eliminating those big plays. And if you can eliminate those big plays and you can get to Mahomes and you can start frustrating him, you see those crazy passes, what they call 50-50 balls or 80-20 balls. You know what? Now, if you come up with a couple of those, you're going to end up winning the game. But the key here, it wasn't just the Chargers' defense, but their offense, because their offense put constant pressure on Kansas City's defense, and they were able to come out and constantly put pressure on them because of the skilled guys that they have, whether it's Jared Cook, whether it's Allen, whether it's Williams outside.
And it's back-to-back weeks now that we've seen KC have a chance, really a great chance to go win the game late. The Baltimore game, they're driving there at the end of the fourth quarter. Hilaire fumbles. They lose that game. In this one, Patrick Mahomes, about 2:17 on the clock, chance to drive it down, just need a field goal to go win it. He lofts that one, just trying to do too much to Kelsey, winds up being an interception. So it comes down to those last drives, just like we saw Aaron Rodgers do to go win it. In the last couple of weeks, Mahomes and KC have not been able to do it. Let's get to Aaron Rodgers. You said, looking at Rodgers, we were just there, San Francisco, Green Bay. We were both on the Packers, even though we thought all signs point to San Francisco winning this game. One side didn't have Aaron Rodgers. The other side did. We both went with the Packers. What are you seeing from that offense? You said you noticed some weaknesses even in the W.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Packers. They need help. They need help in the passing game. They need another receiver. When Davante Adams went down, he had 12 catches and I think 18 targets. When he went down, everybody was like, oh, if he doesn't come back, this game is over. That's how valuable he is. He is an outstanding receiver. You can play him inside, you can play him outside, and everything that you throw to him, he basically comes down with. And I tell you this, Aaron Rodgers, when he threw that deep dig over the linebacker in that 2-minute drill, and he completed it, and it set them up for, I think it was another play or maybe the field goal, but that deep dig that he put right over the linebacker, it was the best throw that I've seen all year. It was just absolutely incredible. But they're going to need help because asking Davante Adams for 18 targets every single week with injuries, hamstrings, and all those different things, that's a tough ask. If I'm the Packers, I'm going out trying to trade for me a veteran wide receiver or a receiver that can come in and make an impact.
Or how about just draft one? And that's the thing, is they may have to go make and do one of those last-second shifts and shakes with the roster, because it all goes back to when Aaron was originally mad. And what it was they drafted a power running back in the second round, and A.J. Dillon, who has done nothing to go contribute to a championship-ready roster. And in the first round, that same draft a year ago, they took Jordan Love, a backup quarterback. So those are two wasted draft picks, two guys that have done nothing in terms of helping this team go chase championships. And it was rounds 1 and 2 of the draft. And now you're looking at the roster and you're going, well, they could really use a tight end. I understand Tunyon's working his way into the circle of trust, but he doesn't scare you. And besides Davante Adams, there's nobody else that you think about other than maybe Aaron Jones coming out of the backfield. So it is deficient with weapons, especially when you start talking about, well, they got to go beat Tom Brady and the Bucs, who have 1 million guys. They got to go beat Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, who have 1 million guys. So the top of the NFL has so many weapons that I don't know if they can hang with them given what they have.
I look at A.J. Dillon, who you just mentioned, and we were watching the game. And as a defensive player, I'm saying this is the guy that I want in the game. I want A.J. Dillon. You know why? Because he's big, he's stiff, and if he doesn't get going, you can just grab his legs and he'll go down. You don't have to really necessarily worry about him as a receiver out of the backfield. But when you put Aaron Jones in there, all of a sudden he can become a receiver, screens, he can run in between the tackles. He can do a multitude of things. Right. And I was just like, okay, A.J. Dillon, he's a big dude. But you could have picked that up in the 5th or 6th round. You didn't have to use a second-round draft choice. And like you talked about, he gives them nothing, absolutely nothing, no explosiveness. And he doesn't even run like he's 250 pounds. Like he's 6 foot 250. Nope. And when I'm looking at him, he looks like he's running like he's a 205 running back like Aaron. And Aaron Jones runs harder than A.J. Dillon, period.
He does. And Dillon's got about 70 pounds on him. Got about 70 pounds on him, and so many times you see Aaron Jones dragging people with him or breaking a tackle and getting another 7 or 8 yards. A.J. Dillon, it seems like almost every time he hits that pile, and you're expecting him to move it. You're expecting him to be Derrick Henry and go push the whole pile or break out of it, and he just kind of gets ushered to the ground almost every time. And that's pretty dang high to pick a running back, period. But to pick a power running back in a passing offense that doesn't have a bunch of power on the NFL field, it was just a tough pick. And now they keep trying to cover up for the mistake and play him, and it's digging them even deeper. Let's go to your third headline, the Cowboys. That's a team who was hammering the football. Dallas, the best team in the NFC East, you say. Monday Night Football looked pretty darn good against Philly.
They did, and I got to give Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator, a lot of props. He's come in and really changed the identity. He told me when we were week 1 in Tampa, he walked up to me, he told me, says, Rodney, I'm not the same coach that I used to be. I used to be cover 3 and pretty predictable. He says, now we're doing a ton of different things. We're running blitzes, man coverage, zone coverage. So you don't know what you're going to get. You might get 2 safeties deep. You might get 2 safeties blitzing. So Dan Quinn is doing a multitude of things. The other person I want to give props to is Dak Prescott. The leadership and toughness that he shows, the mental toughness that he shows every single week. His teammates, think about his teammates when they saw him go down and they saw basically every ounce of rehab that he had to go through. Every single day, him bumping and grinding, doing everything he had to do to get back on the football field. How can you not play hard? How can you not play tough when you see this guy doing everything he can to get back on the football field? That's why a lot of props has to go to Dak Prescott. His leadership and his toughness shows week in and week out.
He's been phenomenal. I mean, you think about going toe-to-toe with Tom Brady in Tampa, coming right off a Super Bowl. We were there for that game. Those fans were going insane that night, and he went toe-to-toe, throw for throw with the GOAT. Then he goes to L.A., knocks off the Chargers. Then he comes back home against Philly and puts on that type of performance where they just hammered them. They were running the ball anytime they wanted to. They were throwing the ball wherever they wanted to put it. C.D. Lamb, Amari Cooper doing their thing. Schultz, the tight ends, playing well right now. Pollard, Zeke Elliott coming out of the backfield. That's a good 1-2 punch. And then the offensive line has just looked great. It's looking like it's returning to a dominant offensive line. Tyron Smith, Zach Martin back on the inside. They have been dominators. What are you seeing up front? Because this is how this football team was built. They were such a good offensive line. Are they getting back to their dominant ways with those 5 up front?
Man, you know me, don't you? You know when you start talking offensive line, because nobody talks offensive line except the fat guys that retired. But I love the offensive line. And Zach Martin, let me tell you, I got a chance to sit back and just watch him play. Just watch him and the job that he did on Fletcher Cox, and just the consistency and toughness and the way he moves these guys. I'm like you pay attention to him and you almost take for granted how good he is. But this guy is great. I'm talking about Hall of Fame type talent, man. I'm really pumped up about their offensive line and what they were able to accomplish, because that's a tough defensive front.
That's who Dallas is, and they've hit on 2 great defensive picks, too, Micah Parsons and Diggs. How about Diggs over at corner? 2nd-round pick back in 2020, Alabama. I don't know if you were listening to the Peyton and Eli broadcast last night, but they had Saban on talking about Diggs while he was making some of these plays. He reminds me of Jalen Ramsey a little bit. Like, he is a physical freak, a physical dominator on the outside. 3 interceptions as well, leads the whole league.
Man, I was so pumped up with him because he has the talent. And we just kind of waiting for that dog to come out. And then when I saw what I saw last night, you hit it perfectly. That was Jalen Ramsey, a guy that was up in his ex-teammate's face, Devontae Smith, talking trash, pick 6. Jalen Hurts up in his face, talking trash, playing with emotion, playing physical. And this kid is intent on being one of the top, if not the top cornerback in the National Football League. So I love what I saw from him. When you get a corner playing like that, trust me, as a safety, as a defensive player, I'm getting pumped. I'm like, okay, let me join in the action. And that's what you see when you see Micah Parsons, when you see Diggs playing on that level. Pretty special, man. I give a lot of props. Give a lot of props to Dan Quinn, because he's got these boys balling right now.
I agree with you. Think about Parsons starting the year at linebacker, and now he's one of the best pass rushers in the entire league. 15 pressures, leads the whole defense there in Dallas. Bunch of quarterback hits and hurries as well. Over in Pittsburgh, that's a front that's known for getting a bunch of pressure as well, but so far it has been rough for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's hear from Mike Tomlin, the head coach. He says they're not hitting that panic button quite yet. Here he was after the loss.
Man, we're not going to push the panic button. What do I mean by the panic button? We're not going to dramatically change who and what we are at this juncture. We're not resistant to change for the purposes of getting better, but we're not going to be so unsteady that we move away from our compass, the identity that we worked hard to develop and will continue to work hard to develop, and the emphasis on a style of play, whatever that may be in all three phases.
Okay, so they're not hitting the panic button yet. But how'd you hear that, Rod? I love when you play right off the head coach. What'd you hear right there?
No, I really don't know what he was talking about. He was kind of going in circles, but my whole point would be if a coach is accountability, okay? It's not about hitting a panic button, but it's about going to your offensive line and holding those guys accountable. And guys that aren't playing well, you have to rotate them. You have to start switching them out, giving other guys opportunities. Big Ben, let's face it, Mike, he looks terrible. He looks old. He looks old. He looks indecisive. He looks nervous back there. He looks uncomfortable behind that offensive line. And you go out and you get, and I said this last week, the absolute perfect running back for your system. And you can barely use them because you can't block for them. And they go and they have this entire offseason. You pay T.J. Watt, one guy, $28 million a year, but you disregard your offensive line. And it's not going to happen when you have a old, stiff quarterback that can barely move, get out of bed behind that offensive line. It's just going to be very, very difficult for them to get rectified, brother.
Yeah, without T.J. Watt, it's going to be hard to begin with. Cam Hayward's been great again. He's been so dominant over his whole career there in Pittsburgh. He's having one of the best starts of his career. Melvin Ingram's been good coming over from the Chargers, but until T.J. Watt gets back defensively, it's going to be hard. Alex Highsmith also missed the Cincinnati game as well, so that's two really big pieces they were playing.
I don't worry about their
defense.
Cincinnati
Bengals. Yep. Because it's not going to matter when you are going all in on Ben Roethlisberger, who is a play extension quarterback who can't extend plays anymore. And that's a problem. And they've had so many years now. He's been falling off for 3 years. They've had 3 years to start lining up this succession plan. Who's going to be next? Draft somebody. Bring in a free agent. Bring in somebody that you can believe in as a backup that can become a starter. And there's still nobody on that roster that can be that guy. Let's get to the Buffalo Bills, because every time I watch Josh Allen play, this is when I realize how far Big Ben's fallen off. Because it's sort of what Big Ben used to be. Was he as athletic? Maybe not quite as athletic, but he was as big, and he was able to break tackles back there, and he was able to create second plays. The Buffalo Bills, you're calling them the class of the AFC right now. Why?
Well, because of him. First and foremost, he's the best quarterback in the AFC. And he's missed some deep down the field throws early in a couple games, but now he has this special connection with Emmanuel Sanders. The secondary is starting to pick up. They're creating turnovers, and they're going to continue to try to improve that run game. But having Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, having all these different weapons, and it's not like even Stephon Diggs is having big games. But when you can kind of spread the wealth, you make that offense incredibly difficult to handle. And I look at Buffalo, and with Josh extending plays, making plays, and doing the things that he's doing, I like the Buffalo Bills right now as the class, even though they've lost one.
And receiver was a weakness for them, and that's why they made that trade, tried to bring in Stephon Diggs to become their number one wide receiver. And then another big offseason pickup that they made was Emmanuel Sanders. And you thought that he might go down there to New Orleans last season and have a huge year with Drew Brees. Didn't really pan out in that way. Now he comes to Buffalo. He's in his 30s, well into his 30s now, but he's exploding a bit. I mean, he's finding a great partnership here with Josh Allen, and it's working. I just thought Allen threw some laser beams in that game, and he does it on the move, and he's so comfortable back there. He's standing tall like we see Tom Brady do, but he's never worried. I think it's the size factor. He's never worried that somebody's going to get a big hit on him because he's bigger than all these defensive linemen. It's like how many times you see a quarterback that when he's moving and a lineman gets an arm on him, he just knocks it off, and he's faster, and he's able to create space to go make another throw point or make a throw on the run. He is as physically and imposing of a quarterback as we've seen since Cam Newton. The difference is he can actually throw the ball too. It's a scary combination.
Man, let me tell you, you name me one guy that's tough, one quarterback that's tougher than him. I don't see it. You tell me one quarterback physically tougher than this guy. He's a handful. And you talked about, you compared him to Big Ben. I played against Big Ben when Big Ben came in as a rookie. We kicked their butts too, picked them off 87 yards to the house, had to mention that. But when Big Ben came in as a rookie, he was the same way. chasing them around. And Coach Belichick would always tell us, when we watch tape, don't tackle around the ankles, don't tackle around the thighs, don't even tackle around the hips. Tackle his arms, because he's always up there and he's always pushing you off. But if you go tackle his arms, he can't go anywhere. So that's one of the lessons that we had to learn to play against Big Ben.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.